Hello, I'm in my corner and drinking a Diet Coke. I've had a nap since this morning, so I'm feeling much more alive. And I wanted to come in and talk about On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. Now, I've read Night Sky with Exit Wounds by him, and I really, really love this collection. This is such a good collection. In places, the poems he's writing are so freaking amazing. So anyone interested in poetry, I would suggest you pick this up. Um, or even if you're new to poetry, this would probably be quite good for you actually. A lot of the poems, they're quite hard hitting, but I think if you concentrate on them, they're easy enough to follow. And I wanted to bring this up because the title, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, is the same title as one of the poems in this collection. So I think that's an interesting thing for a writer to do. But anyway, talking about this book, I had a lot of mixed feelings on it. First of all, the cover, I guess it looks pretty. I'm guessing they chose this design because I think it came out in the autumn in the UK, but personally, I think it's a bit lame. In retrospect, after reading the book, I'm like, where do autumn leaves come in except for, I guess, being ephemeral and passing? I guess they suffice. But I think they could have picked something more interesting. And it also makes it quite hard to read the title when you've got red and pink next to each other. Like, who puts red and pink next to each other? But apart from that, is a hardback. You know, it's quite nice as they go. Inside, the title is like this. So I quite like this slanting effect. That's quite poetic. Now, this is his debut, as a lot of people know, and it's meant to be like semi-autobiographical. I don't know that much about him, but I do think it is good for reading this because it helps give you a bit more context for the relationships in this collection if you've read this. I mean, reading someone autobiographically through fiction and then into poetry is problematic, but if he's going to put it out there that what he's writing is biographical, you can expect people to do things like that. In this book is kind of being lauded as a masterpiece. I'll read you some of the quotations. A masterpiece, staggeringly beautiful, full of wisdom and pain, a huge gift to the world. That's from Max Porter. A marvel, someone else says. Vuong is rewriting what fiction is supposed to be, and it is a privilege to watch. Another person says, Michael Cunningham says, this brilliant and remarkable first novel. Someone else says, this is one of the best novels I've ever read. Ocean Vuong is a master. This book is a masterpiece. There it is on there. A masterpiece. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think there are parts of the book that are very successful. A lot of it, I felt like Vuong's editor or agent should have sat him down and been like, I think you need to go over this. I don't know if maybe he got a book deal and then he had a deadline that he had to rush everything for, but some of it did feel rushed to me. Some people have said This is like hearkening back to the idea of, the great American novel. And phrases like that make me glad I live in the UK, where I think the most a writer will get in the UK is being, an English master of the novel. I think that's the most people get. And I'm Welsh, so no one would ever say that a Welsh writer was a master of the Welsh novel. So I'm glad that no one holds up English novels or British novels as great British novels, because it's just cringy. And the idea of this being a great American novel makes me glad I'm not American. And I do really admire Ocean Vuong as a writer, actually, so I hope no one's too offended by what I'm saying. But when some people are propping up a book to be brilliant and amazing when it's not, if you can prop something up, you can tear it down. So there we go. So in this, the character Little Dog, is that what he's called? They keep referring to him as Little Dog, I think. And the novel is written from his perspective, and it follows him as he grows up, and he is writing... he's basically writing this to his mother. Like, it opens Dearest Ma, I think. Dear Ma. So but the mother dies in it. You find that out, so it's not a spoiler. And basically, because the novel is written in that way, it kind of seems like a prayer to someone. So, you write something to someone and they can never answer back, so you can write whatever you want, and it gives the narrator a lot of freedom. So I like that aspect of it. I thought that was okay. So let me read you some stuff from the beginning. So this bit on here is about monarch butterflies, and that I found stunning, that writing. And then this writing on the next page goes, and this is addressing his mother. The first time you hit me, I must have been 4. A hand, a flash, a reckoning, my mouth a blaze of touch. Like, that is so overwritten, that's so bad. And I'm like, how does someone who wrote this, like, where the writing is stunning and just so perfect, how did someone write that? It's kind of baffling to me. So, yeah, some of it was, like, they were small sections, like the part with the butterflies that were really beautiful. And other parts were like the blaze of touch, a reckoning, and really overwrought, and that really put me off. So, a lot of the time with the novel, I really wanted to give it, all of me and love it, but it kind of kept dodging, I don't know, dodging whatever it was really trying to do. That's what I felt like. And I think if people are heralding it as a great American novel, they might see that as, answering back to the great American novel and rejecting a master narrative by having the narrator be able to flit about on different things. So I understand that, but when the things you're flitting about on are like really lame, like just lamely written, it just felt quite lazy. Especially towards the last part of the book. So particularly the last 50 pages, and this book is 240 odd pages, so it's not that long. Particularly the last 50 pages felt quite weak. A lot of the kind of phrases in here are things that profess to be profound, but really when you read them, you're like, it's cringy. Let me see. What is... like one of the phrases was like, is there a reason why the dead always outnumber the living? Something like that. And I was like, that's really cringy. Like, it's kind of like he'd written down just, passing thoughts in a notebook that he thought at the time were really profound. And then, you're meant to look back at them and go, oh, okay. But, I mean, why you would put them in a novel, I don't know. Or, I mean, put them in a novel, but then why is it being held up as, a masterpiece, staggeringly beautiful, when it's not? But anyway, apart from other things I didn't like, I wanted to talk about things I did like. So, his grandmother in it was the best character for me. There's one bit where, the character in it, Little Dog, his family come from Vietnam and then they moved to America. So the grandmother is Vietnamese, the mother's Vietnamese, and then Little Dog is kind of like a blend of that and American. And when they move to America, the grandmother comes too, but the grandmother, she has loads of issues because she's had like, a really traumatic past. And sometimes she just confesses odd things to Little Dog. So there's one bit where she turns around and just goes, I never asked to be a whore. And at that point when I was reading that, I was like, yes, spill it. I'm loving this. So I really wanted more of that, I think. And it does seem, like when I say it like that, it assumes like, it's not a glamorous thing to be a prostitute. But the way the book kind of presents it to you, it does kind of seem like it presents it with flair. So I enjoyed that. It felt kind of like it was actually enjoying itself a little bit. Other times, so yeah, it felt like it was enjoying itself a bit, and I liked that kind of surprise. So by about page 100, I was getting a bit like, okay, so there's this grandmother character I'm interested in, but I didn't get as much as her as I wanted. And then after that, he's growing up after school, and he works on a tobacco farm, and then basically a little like romance blossoms, but it's not a romance, it's kind of more like a love interest more than a romance. But the guy he falls in love with, Trevor, is kind of made out to be like this, I guess, like white American, not gangster, but he's like into drugs. I think his dad lives in a caravan, so they kind of get together, and that's really sweet. But it's also, torn because he's really into drugs, and that's not going to end well. And there were parts where the voice of the narrator was really, really compelling. So I'd be really entranced by that. He'd be talking about sex that he was having with Trevor, and I was like, yes, this is so well written. And then he'd be flitting off and then trying to profess these profound thoughts that weren't profound at all and were really cringy. So that was quite jarring. And then there's also a point later in the book where he, like, Little Dog just goes, I'm bipolar. And I was like, right, okay, that's fine. But, I mean, you can't just say that. Like, what do you mean? Like, were you diagnosed like this? Or, you're identifying as having that diagnosis. But, I mean, I didn't really see any symptoms of that in it. Like, he seemed pretty, like, down at times. So if you're gonna say, like, profess to have a diagnosis like that as a character, I feel like you know, the novelist who's writing it should do the character justice, and it felt like it didn't do that for me. What else? Also, the title, because the title comes from the poem, and the poem is about, I guess, like a young man and his lover. So, I didn't really like the title. Oh my god, I just ripped my jeans. uh, I don't really like the title that much, but when I knew it was based on a poem, then I could accept it a little more. But I just think, actually, on Earth we're briefly gorgeous. Actually, unfortunately, Ocean, not everyone is gorgeous. Some people are never gorgeous. But I think as a gay novel, it's interesting. Like the relationship with Trevor, I really like that. Him struggling from a different background, that was really good to read. I'm really glad I did pick it up, but there were lots of issues with it. So I think maybe the title is meant to be maybe a nod towards how in gay life they really valorize young gay men, and you know, like a lot of gay men feel like once you're 30 you're past it, like you're really past it, which isn't the case. But in gay culture they do tend to really value youth, and unless you're a really masculine older man, it's kind of like, oh no, you're on the trash heap now. So it kind of felt like the book was more playing into that than questioning it. So I'm like, it's fine to write about identity, like I love that, but you should be quizzical. You shouldn't be just showcasing stuff. So this book raised a lot of problems for me, but it is a debut, so sometimes with debuts, you know, there are drawbacks. So, I mean, I will still read stuff that Ocean Vuong puts out. Well, I don't know about another novel. I had to look quite into it a bit more until if I picked up another novel of his. But as a poet, I really respect him as a poet. As a novelist, I'm not sold on him. So, if you're interested in gay writing, authors from non-Western backgrounds, and let me think. If you like books that are, you know, emotional and addressed to dead people, I'd recommend this book. Gay stiffness!